I'm sitting at the cafe reading my book and enjoying a coffee before my counselling session. I get a few pages in and there is a nudge from inside saying, look around. As I scan my surroundings, I catch a man's eyes looking directly at me. The voice says, don't pay it attention. So I get back to reading my book. And after a while, I get up to head to my session and I'm stopped by the man. He asks, excuse me, what book are you reading? And I say laughingly, Women Who Love Too Much. He says, oh, why are you reading that for? And I nervously laugh and reply, because I'm a woman who loves too much. I notice he's Indigenous and decide to ask, where you bummer from? Which describes an Aboriginal person from North Queensland. He says, oh, she know language, to his friend. And I smile and I share my connections to Indigenous families in the area. He's related to them. He says, it is Great Spirit who has brought us together. Take a seat. I take a seat and I feel teary. It's the first time since Uncle Ronnie passed that I felt that connection to his culture and spirit. He was a respected healer and Indigenous elder, and he was like a dad to me. But this feels different. This man takes me on a confusing journey of stories, and I do not feel comfortable with him. He asks, how are you getting home? Oh, I'm getting the bus. He says, no, you will come with me. And I said, no, that's okay, thank you. I already paid for my ticket. He insists I ride with him, and eventually, like a young girl following orders from her dad, I say, okay, and we make a time to meet. My session has finished and I meet him at his car. Trying to create some relationship boundaries, I ask, do you mind if I call you Uncle? He pauses for a moment and with a look of aversion on his face, he nods his head with an okay. We get in the car and I say, thank you very much for this. And he says with an aggressive tone, my people don't say thank you. I say, oh yeah, I mean Napaji Napaji. And he repeats back with a deep, drawn out, intimidating tone, Napaji Napaji. I laugh off the aggression. During the journey down the hill, he puts me on a pedestal saying, you're like honey to the bees. And then ripping the rug from beneath me saying, you need to get out on country. My head was confused and I wanted to trust him, but my body was clenched tightly. I was scared. I wish I just took the bus. I had no idea if I would make it out of the car unharmed. All I wanted to say was, what is your intentions? But it wouldn't come out. He touched my chin and he grabbed my hand in a way that wasn't like any respecting uncle would have ever done. I finally made it to my destination. He asks, when will I see you later? And I said, no, sorry, I'm busy tonight. He says, these opportunities don't come twice. And all I could conjure up was, I'm actually experiencing some fear right now. He says with a deep, aggressive voice, good, you should face your fears. You think I'm going to take you out there and fuck you? And I uncomfortably laugh it off and say, goodbye. I get on my bike and I ride as fast as I can home. I later went down to the shops and I thought everyone was pissing me off. But I realized I was actually angry for not using my voice. Why haven't I got this right? Why can't I speak up for myself? And why do I allow men to have authority over me? I'm laying on the floor next to my brother at my dad's, and we're bickering as siblings do. My brother keeps provoking me, and eventually I get louder. Dad yells at me to tell me off. It's not fair. Adam's the one annoying me. Dad yells at me some more, and I feel embarrassed in front of Dad's friend. So I talk back to him. Now he's embarrassed. He says, get to your room. I bat chat some more as I make my way to the room. And shortly after, he follows me in and yells at me with that deep suppressed anger and opens his strong hand and he smacks my head into the brick wall. Dad was volatile. If I stepped out of line, I got punished. If I expressed my emotions, I got punished. I did my best to shapeshift into different versions of myself to stay safe. I tried to please him and be as good as I could for him, but sometimes I failed. And because of all of this, I shoved down my emotions, I numbed out and stayed quiet. Throughout my life, men in particular would say inappropriate things to me, and the learned culture was just to laugh it off and ignore it. For much of my earlier years, I would get blind drunk to numb the pain, but it was also what I thought was normal. And sometimes I'd find myself in sexual situations that I didn't consent to. Drunk or not drunk, I couldn't use my voice. I couldn't call things out in the moment. I didn't even know what red flags or boundaries were. It wasn't safe to be authentically me. If I tried to express things that I saw or experienced which didn't feel right, often I would be made to feel guilty or manipulated. I've never had a relationship because I sabotaged any possibility with my extreme anxiety. And I usually accept less than I deserve because I am so desperate to be loved. I'm at a healing retreat and I've been on an epic roller coaster of emotions. Witnessing the men and the women step into the space to be heard and to be held in deepest respect and confidentiality. It's my turn. I walk around the circle of emotions to see which quadrant calls to me, unsure of what is going to erupt out of me, not sure which emotion I'm feeling the most. And then there it is. I stop in anger and I remember a conversation. I'm 27 and about to embark on a big spiritual journey. But before I do, I catch up with my mum. I come to her with radical self-responsibility for the cards that I've been dealt. But I come with a yearning to understand why I carry stuff that doesn't feel like my own. And through some prodding and probing, Mum eventually confesses, "Your father used to beat on me when I was 5 months pregnant with you." Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. The feeling of lifelong anxiety, stress, and fear, the penny drops. A piece of my puzzle is filled. Now at the retreat, I'm standing there and I'm feeling the bubbling of my pain and sadness well up within me. I'm sick of being nice. I'm sick of never feeling celebrated, never feeling seen. I spend all my birthdays and Christmases alone. The anger and sadness is starting to rage. Ah! I scream from the pit of my stomach and to the top of my lungs. Ah! Ah! Wake the fuck up! I melt to the earth and I punch the ground. My rage turns into tears and I move back to my seat. I can still feel all of the emotions running through my body. And I hold my hand on my heart and I look each person one by one in the eyes. We nod our head to acknowledge one another. And soon my anger turns into a smile and I scream out, "That was fucking liberating!" Finally, being able to feel and express my anger, I felt free. Being able to be the one that was yelling and was given the space to do so, permission to feel and let my sacred rage pour out of me. The expression of it gave me access to my power. And I can see by repressing my rage, I did not listen to my intuition. I stayed in unsafe environments and I didn't speak up for myself or say my truth. And because of this, I never had healthy boundaries that I created for myself to keep me safe. But how could I? Having boundaries meant that I would be seen as talking back and being trouble. And that meant big punishment. It all made so much sense. But something shifted that day. my intuition came back online, and I started to sense and live through my boundaries. Now I celebrate my sacred rage, and I've been screaming a lot, honoring that it too needs a voice and to be witnessed as much as me. So since the healing retreat, I learned my contract wasn't being renewed, and I found the courage to request an exit interview with my employer. I turned down a job that wasn't aligned with my values and instead took an opportunity to move from one end of Australia to another, nearly 6,000 kilometers. And I gave up my home and I sold almost everything I owned to dive deeper into this work of reclaiming my power. I've been showing up on my socials, sharing myself authentically, and now I'm on a mission to change the story before reaching 40. A few years ago, I was at my mum's and my niece was expressing her rage. Mum yelled at her, and I noticed how that made her jump with fear. Since I didn't know how to deal with her rage, I took her up to her room and I held the door closed on her. And I recognize now that I did the same thing to her that was done to me. And it broke my heart. I'm aware that I too have been conditioned to suppress others, to stop others from feeling, making the power of their rage and sadness fully allowed. I want to give people permission to express themselves. Now I know the power of my rage and own the ability to express it with responsibility. But it is a journey, and I am committed. This gives me the ability to be my own mama bear, taking care of myself in new ways, stating my needs and saying what needs to be said, and screaming it out powerfully. In the past, I have put myself within boundaries and tightropes to be loved, but now I put boundaries up that allow my movement the way I want, with my heart and my intuition leading.